All right, over to you, Mr. Lee.
Hello. How is everyone? It's 4 p.m. Looking forward to dinner? Yes. Thank you. I have an iPad here. Okay, let me figure out how to use it. Anyway, so this panel is about entrepreneurship, and it's bilingual, right? 我们用中英两种语文。I was told that first speaks good Chinese. 可以 OK 没问题。
还好。
Both
fine, yeah.
Okay. So basically we have 3 panelists. 我们这里有3位就是参加这个的嘉宾。They have very different backgrounds, but they are sort of operating in a similar space, which is youth entrepreneurship. And now it's 2025, and we look at all the sort of e-commerce, all the social commerce, and all the AI capabilities. And I've been talking to entrepreneurs for the last 10 years. I've founded a few companies, and I think nowadays people are a bit anxious. 就是说，我们10多年前看就是创业的朋友来说的话，就大家都觉得机会很好。到2025年呢，就是还有很多朋友在创业，但大家都会觉得，就是这个世界好像变了很多。就是一方面你有很多机会，一方面又有很多挑战，而且就是新的技术会让你有时候有些猝不及防。So I hope this discussion will be interesting and inspiring and also practical for some of the people in the audience who are thinking of starting a company, who are already starting a company, or who are sort of joining a high growth company in the early stage. So I think I have the introduction of the 3 panelists, but maybe it makes more sense for them to introduce themselves.
Okay, then I can start first. So hi everyone, it's Simon Yan Sibin from TikTok Shop. So previously I was in China looking through the content e-commerce, but now I have the luck to come to TikTok, responsible for SEA e-commerce relevant business. So it's a great privilege to come here, and hope can share a little bit my knowledge on this domain.
It's amazing to see how many people are actually creating content and creating commerce opportunities on TikTok now.
Hi, I'm Damon. I failed at my first 4 startups. ErgoTune was the one that was a success for us. We built it for around 7 years. We bootstrapped it. 7 years was including all the other failed businesses, so actually 4 or 5 years. So we bootstrapped it to around 15 million. We sold the company. I've been taking a break. Now I'm working on my next venture called Second Surface, which is a community for founders and CEOs.
我补充一句啊，你刚才说7年是不是 7 years?
7 years was when I graduated from university and I started creating businesses. The first 4 failed. ErgoTune was the one that was a success.
We have done some research about some of the top internet companies in China, including ByteDance, including Meituan, including Pinduoduo, now Temu across the world. There's one thing in common, that the founders spent 7 years building different companies before they start a current company. So I think there's lots of hope about your current company, right?
That is true, yeah. Expectations, to be honest, after an exit, expectations is much higher from yourself and other people to build something huge.
Look forward to hearing more, yeah.
So hello everyone, my name is Fong. 大家好，我是越南人。So that's how my Chinese is.
Very good.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called MeToo. We established since 2014 during my 4th year university. So I also been doing the business from that time until now. It's 11 years now. We are a company that we work with content creators across multiple social platforms to help them curate their fan base and distribute their content. And on the other side, we work with brands to help them working with creators for influencer marketing and live stream selling. We do a lot of live stream selling on TikTok Shop. as well. Our company mission is very naive. It's called Live by Passion. So we want to help every content creators will be able to produce content that they like, they're passionate about, and also make a living out of that and build that into a career. Hopefully to share more about it today.
Just a little bit, the phone was telling me that I know MeTube very well. And over the last year, I've been to actually Ho Chi Minh City quite a number of times. And I have seen, I think I've been to one of your live sessions on a Sunday afternoon. And it always amazed me, like, you know, I mean, almost 100 people inside a room who are working very hard on a Sunday afternoon. And this reminds me of, you know, in early days in China, where you seize the opportunity that you can actually mobilize hundreds of people to work very hard. Everyone forgets, you know, it's already like, you know, dinner time, and then somebody came in with the dinner. So it's quite a nice feeling.
Thank you. We do actually do learn a lot from China. And so one thing is, so I think an opportunity for us as a company to work in Vietnam is we were able to create a portfolio that have the Taylor Swift of Vietnam, the Mr. Beast of Vietnam, and also the Weya of Vietnam. So that is a feeling about our company.
国内的朋友应该知道薇娅吧，直播的。Yeah, so it was one of the two top influencers selling on live streaming before the pandemic, and I think we once had a discussion with her and her team, and they look at some of your influencers. They say, "Wow, that reminds me of my early days," and it's very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to structure this discussion a little bit across a few different themes. We're going to talk about some of the macro opportunities. We're going to talk about, I mean, how sort of the young people building companies nowadays they should deal with, and some of the personal reflections, and what to look forward to. And I think before we go to the macro, talk about numbers, opportunities, I want to ask maybe Damon and the phone one question about your journey, right? I mean, tell us some interesting fact about. I mean, you mentioned about 7 years, but I'm sure a lot of things happened in 7 years. Tell us something interesting of your journey, which you still remember to this day. Too many things.
Many things, but I think most of the audience are your entrepreneurs here. Have you all started businesses? Mostly students, right? So I'll tell something interesting about my student's day, as a student, which is, I think we always think we have to start really big, but my journey started really small, really tiny, and I was sued by Amazon as a student. So what I did was, hey, I think when you're young, right, there are a lot of things you can do to start living what I think of as breadcrumbs for success, right? Little things that you do that's out of the ordinary that you start building from. What I did back then was, I was a poor student. I was trying to buy a Kindle from Amazon USA, and I realized they don't ship directly to Singapore. So I went to a freight forwarder, I got it to Singapore. It was a lot of pain to do that. And I thought, hey, maybe there's a service that people could want this. So I set up a website. I thought I was really smart. I set up a website called buykindle.sg, which helped me to rank at the top of Google results. So for a good amount of time, I was making like a few $1,000s a month until Amazon saw that and they sued me to get the domain name back. But the point of this story is that, hey, you don't have to start big, you don't have to dream huge. I think a lot of times as young people, you find one little edge that you have, that you build on, and you grow from there. So that's my story.
So do you still have a Kindle?
Not going to tell you. But that's how I got started on my e-commerce and brand building journey. Yeah.
But it's actually true because I mean, even if you have a big dream, you need to start from somewhere. And I've spoken with a lot of entrepreneurs and people who have made it. They will tell you that in early days it was pretty hard to prove to people that you can do it. And a lot of time is about, I mean, going to the small wins and get people to recognize you. Get sort of, I mean, sometimes investors, sometimes just your team, your customers, your partners to work with you, and that's a sort of long process. I mean, one by one, then you achieve something great.
100%.
Yeah. Phone?
Yeah, so it seems like Damon is choosing the entrepreneurship path very intentionally. I think my story is a bit different. So when I was a student, I actually wanted to work for Google. And I was joining a program same as some student program here. It's called Google Student Ambassadors. So I run around my university teaching everyone to use Google products and YouTube for their works and for the educations. And eventually I really wanted to work at Google. And I applied a few times, and they didn't want me. So I want them, but they didn't want me. So I just...
So instead of buy Kindle, you got MeTube instead of YouTube.
Yes. So, and at that time in 2014 is the year that YouTube started monetization in Vietnam. And with some background and relationship with Google, I tried to help a few, like just 3 creators to help them optimize their content on YouTube and started to monetize their content. So before that, everyone was doing YouTube videos for fun. Now they can do YouTube videos and earn some ads dollar. So that is what we initially start with. And I still think that we can, I will do that for a few months and then we'll reapply to Google. But I guess that we start at the very right timing, that the business was growing very well. And in 2018, I've actually get invited by Google to speak and inspire to the new hires of the Google team. So I find that a very a proud revenge for me. I think that's the fun story during my entrepreneur's time. And the second very memorable moments for me was when I got a call from the richest man in Vietnam. So it's very personally cold call to my phone. And I think he at that time was having an acquire hire campaign.
Is that Mr. Pham Vong?
Mr. Pham Vinh Guc.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the moment I know that, oh, my company have some value. And because when we are the founders and the CEO, we always go and inspire the employees, and no one really recognized our efforts. And then there is some external force that recognized ourselves. That is very memorable moments for me.
Very nice, very nice. And of course, it has been more than 10 years, and it's quite a journey. I'm going to ask again a little bit more about the journey. You talk about revenge. You talk about being sued. And can I ask you, throughout this 7 years, 10 years, 11 years actually, so what was your biggest mistake made? And how can people take from this mistake? Sorry, I have to keep asking tough questions.
You want to answer first?
I think we have a lot of mistake, a lot of proud moments and a lot of mistake, but as a company built up from a very small one, and we had a chance to like grow up gradually. I would say that if I can come back in time, I would put more efforts into accounting, legal, tax, since it was very early days, so that you don't have to fix it later on. So if you're going to start your own company, make sure you hire a good accounting person in day one. I think so.
I love that.
So as you are laughing, so did you hire a good accountant on day one or in year 7?
Year 7. It's way too late, way too late. especially if you're planning for an exit, you should start getting your accounts in order. And I think the lack of that meant we got a bit less than we could have. But that's a champagne problem. That's only when you have some level of traction. On day one, I think it's day 0. I think it's okay not to focus on that. But my biggest mistake, I think more than anything, it's a mistake of omission of what we didn't pursue, which is we didn't recognize the platform shift and the opportunity that was happening in building a brand on Facebook, Instagram, what I call Meta today, right? And we didn't go hard enough, early enough, invest more in that early. We tried to go on a lot of channels. We went wide in the early stage, when in fact, what we should have done is recognize that, hey, there is this massive platform, incredibly good at converting people with incredible volume. That's the only thing we should have gotten good at and focused entirely on that. But instead, we spread our resources across a few platforms in the early stage instead of just focusing on one thing.
But could you have known that in early days? Or is trial and error eventually figured out, okay, this is the right thing to do? Without trying, would you be able to figure that out? Because I think that's lots of that's the issue that lots of would-be entrepreneurs would be facing, right? There are so many choices. There are so many things I could do, and people advise me different things. What should I do?
That's a good question. There's a lot of post-fact rationalization, what you're saying. I think we didn't have the wisdom back then of doing a simple back-of-the-envelope calculation, right? We were trying offline channels where if we had just done, like trying to work with doctors and doctors and chiropractors, but if you had just done a back-of-envelope calculation, where we would have realized the volume is not going to be there for this to be a worthwhile channel. If we had the wisdom to look at what other brand owners are doing and how brands similar stage as us were focusing their time and energy, we would have found out that, hey, this is something to test earlier. But of course, there's a lot to be said about when you're trying something, how long do you try for before giving up, right? I don't have a good solution to that. Maybe try for 3 months, go all in, and then figure it out. There's a lot to be said about keeping your head down, swimming, and then occasionally looking up. Yeah, so no good answer.
So I think both of you actually mentioned to the same thing, right? In early days, when you try to do things, there's so many things you could do. And of course, there are things which you overlooked. There are some thinking process that you have overlooked. And I would think that, I mean, look at where you are today. So all these issues, I mean, it could have been avoided, but as long as you have the grit, as long as you have some good strategic thinking to constantly sort of move your organization, shape your focus, sharpen your focus, etc. Eventually, you will be somewhere. But of course, with all this knowledge that you could have taken in earlier days, you could have reached maybe a destination sooner.
100%.
So, but still, I mean, I think it's an interesting journey. You have something to say.
Yeah. So I am echo on that, but on the other hand, I think if at that time, 11 years ago, I have too much wisdom, I would probably not start the company as well. So,
True.
so
Very
it's a
true.
pros and cons there. Sometimes just go for it is also a way.
It's actually very true because if you have done all the cost-benefit analysis very well, you will know the odds of entrepreneurship, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a saying that we did it not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy. Yeah, that's exactly how it got started.
It's true.
Yeah.
That caused you to jump into it. Let's move a little bit towards the macro side about Southeast Asia as a region as a whole. And we have been tracking the e-commerce numbers in Southeast Asia. Last year, we tracked $128.4 billion transacted on e-commerce across different platforms. And obviously, it has been a growth story for last decade. And but still, I mean, if we look at it today, the e-commerce penetration across the whole region is about 10, 12, 13%, depending on what kind of statistics you look at. When we look at China, it's 27%. When we look at the US, it's more than 20%. My question, maybe to Simon first, is that do you still see a lot of growth opportunities ahead, and why?
Sure. I think definitely it's when you see the market growth, usually it's not grows linearly, right? As the good example you bring about for China and the US, who is currently the e-commerce penetration quite high. But for Southeast Asia, I think in general it's around just the 10 to 15 e-commerce penetration. Reason being, currently users' trust to the platform, infrastructure's readiness, and the supply richness, etc., still not there yet. If we look back in China like 10 years ago, right, the growth is exponentially, right? Why was that? That's because during that time, infrastructure is relatively ready. From the user perspective, they can buy a lot of stuff and delivered in 2 or 3 days to their home. Then they think it's really convenient to buy online instead of offline. But for Southeast Asia, I think currently we're still not there yet. So it's not quite directly substitute the function of offline for online business. But we do believe the trigger point is coming near and near, right? For where we can see the e-commerce penetration is growing steadily in recent years, and the readiness of all the infrastructure and the supply is quite there, and people are more trust the online platform to buy the stuff. So I think a very interesting point is like previous one we see a US or China, there's always different stage of the growth of the e-commerce market. For example, at the beginning is the supply, more and more rich supply going to the platform. Then there's a channel becoming more and more ready. For example, there are agencies that's providing logistics service, customer service, content, etc. More and more of that to build the smooth growth path of the channel. And then it's going to the brand phase, where if you want to win your customer, you need to have a brand, you need to have content, marketing, etc. It's usually go to this 3 stage, right? But what's interesting in Southeast Asia is, if we look in recent 5 years, these 3 kind of things happening at the same time. And now it's even adding another factor of the AI, of the new technology, that make these things even more opportunities coming out of it. So I'm quite optimistic of the growth of this market, and I do believe the young generation should really seize the opportunity in this growing area of e-commerce, and especially content e-commerce trend in Southeast Asia.
So we have been tracking a lot of the e-commerce numbers, and we talked about the GMV, and this is another set of numbers that we have seen. In 2022, Southeast Asia as a whole delivered 11.2 billion parcels. In 2023, that grew 14% to 12.8 billion. In 2024, that grew again 25% to 16 billion. I believe TikTok Shop contributed to lots of this growth. But at the same time, we see the cost of delivering parcel keep going down. And initially we were saying that, okay, is that because the platforms are squeezing the logistic companies? But then we look at top logistic companies, then they're making a profit. So it's an ecosystem which is becoming mature, and the volume is driving the efficiency. And moving forwards, you will see, a lot of this materializing into benefits for people who try to build brands, who try to build products. You have an ecosystem you can tap into. Damon, what do you think?
To be honest, I don't have a strong view on this, because I come from a brand owner perspective.
Okay.
The macro matters, the trend matters somewhat, but I don't look at the overall numbers. What I would say though is that it almost is less. So things like cost of delivery going down, it's helpful as a brand owner. But if you're starting out, I think a lot of these trends, big numbers, are noise. Right? Because when you're starting out, all you need is a foothold to building your customer base, finding your product channel fit. And those are more based on macro fundamentals of, hey, do you have a good product? Are you able to get attention? Are you able to get people to buy? And I think those things are more evergreen than what is the e-commerce penetration rate. So I don't look at that in particular. What I do see interestingly from other brand owners is that, especially I think in Southeast Asia, I think the interesting thing about building brands in Southeast Asia is that you got to go wide earlier than if you're in, say, the US. What I mean by this is, in the US, it's possible for you to build a 8-figure brand, $100 million brand purely online because it's deep enough. For Southeast Asia, often what I see is that you can do purely online for maybe up to 10 million, but at some point people start expanding towards retail, right? Because that builds trust, that builds conversion, and there are a lot of sectors that's still very predominantly retail driven. Yeah, so those are the interesting things I'm seeing from other brand owners. Us as well, right? If we were to stay purely online, we couldn't have gotten to the revenue. Whereas in the US, it's possible.
So when you say go wide, that means that go to the different channels, not go through the different geographies, or both?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Whereas in the US, what I notice is there are people who just hardcore go on Meta ads and build it to $100 million revenue. It's entirely possible because the internet economy is that big, that deep. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, you'll reach a ceiling at some point, then you've got to go wide in channels.
Is that a healthy thing, or is just what it is? Because we look at lots of the D2C brands in the US, right? They can become something super big, but if they stay online, if they remain online after they went IPO or whatever, sometimes they lose the momentum. They just realize that because online you have to constantly get customers' sort of attention, and you have to constantly do different things because the traffic is so unstable. And for a lot of these brands after the IPO, I mean, there are lots of things that they can't do anymore because they have to prove the profitability, etc. And that actually becomes quite hard. So I don't know. Maybe having to go to the different channels is tough as it is. Maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing as much as it is a different competency and a different way to think about the sequencing of what to do as a company. I think a big part of building a company is you can do everything, but you just need to choose the right sequence. Yeah, so that's actually one of the bigger lessons that we learned as well, which is that, because a lot of my learnings about how to operate a DTC brand is I learned from the US brands. And what they always tell me is just focus on one channel. And then I realized, I can't just focus on one channel because in Southeast Asia and Singapore, I get capped at a certain e-commerce online penetration. And then you need to go offline, you need to go other channels, you need to go other countries.
Good point. Fuan?
On the macro side, definitely, I think I'm also opportunistic and see a bright future there for the e-commerce in Southeast Asia. For example, in Vietnam, the penetration of e-commerce has been only about 12% of the whole retail. So, and the population of Vietnam is 70%. The population is under 35, and 80% of us are all going online. So I see there's a still huge potential for exploitation of the consumer online as well. And on the other side, we also see that, so from our company perspective, we deliver about 9 billion views monthly. That's attention online. And I think we are only effectively monetized about 5 billions out of the 9 billions. And over that, only about 200 million views is being converted into sales conversion. So there's still, if you're on a macro side, the population and the penetration still have room to grow. And on just a small example, as our company, I still see there's room for 10x growth in the near future.
I do remember, I think back to your guys' points, so the first company I built, and I remember our venture investor once said, so you guys coming from analyst background, you keep looking at how the TAM is $5 billion, $10 billion, $50 billion. To me, there are only two things, big enough or not big enough. So if it's big enough, then it's worth your time to do it. And whether it's, 50, whatever, because you start from something very small. So it doesn't matter, right? If it's big enough, it's worth your effort, and you are going to figure out how to do it. But the more important thing is that along the time, build a good organization, build a good product, build competitiveness. Next question is going to be a bit sensitive. I'm not going to ask Simon. We all know that there's some geopolitics going on. And we all know that I think Singapore is in an interesting position. Vietnam is in a very interesting position now. So do you see that, of course, I mean, a lot of the things that we see now, I just came back from Shenzhen this morning. I spent a week there. I was looking at the consumer electronics supply chain there. It's crazy, right? The amount of vacuum cleaners, the amount of sort of the washing machines, and nowadays you have the robot vacuum cleaner, which was just released 2 weeks ago, that can climb the stairs. So basically, after you finish cleaning the ground floor, you can go to the second floor and clean the second floor. So it's a bit crazy, and of course, on one hand, for the last, I don't know, before the pandemic, we talked about the world being more connected and sort of people can work with each other to tap into the global market. And now, I think in 2025, we're living in a different world. So where on the one hand, you see a lot of supply chain coming out of China. On the other hand, I think the relationship between different governments, between different sort of regulators seem to be a little bit tricky now. So I want to translate that. I want you guys, sort of Damon and the phone, to help me translate that into, does that impact, I mean, how young entrepreneurs should think about their products at all or no? And if so, how?
Sorry, the question is how young entrepreneurs should think about their products?
Think about, I mean, does this geopolitics, you know, the US-China rivalry and all this, like, you know, countries stuck in between, does that impact young entrepreneurs at all, or they should not think about this problem at all?
Honestly, I don't have a good answer. I would think, especially if you're building a brand, if you're starting out, my default starting point is the same, right? It is, you don't so much have to figure out what the geopolitical issues are as much as you need to figure out how to build a brand, a product that people want, and find a way to get their attention and find a way for them to buy it. That's really the main thing you need to figure out. Obviously, geopolitical tensions affect, in particular, supply chain, because most of our products are sourced from China. We did try going other countries, but I think what people don't realize and talk about enough is that China is no longer, from our experience, is no longer just the low-cost competitor. It is extremely innovative. There is an ecosystem lock-in, right? If you think about just inventory and cycle time, if I have to move something out of China, having a part that's manufactured outside of China slows everything down, because that part, let's say I manufacture in Vietnam, becomes a bottleneck that I have to ship into China. Whereas even if it's more expensive in China, right, it makes more sense for me to make it in China, because my lead time goes from 60 days, I have to ship it over, to 20 days, right? That makes a huge difference in my cash flow and my inventory, right? So obviously there are going to be impact in that kind of areas, but I would think that is again, it's almost a champagne problem, where if you figure out demand and how to get people to buy things, then yeah, figure out the supply chain. But I don't know how useful it is when you're starting out to predict these kind of things. Yeah.
No, but I think for this question, and you answered to the last question, I think you have something consistent, right? Focus on building your stuff to be really competitive. Then think about other problems as the problem come by, right? Fuan? You must have seen lots of Chinese brands trying to go to Vietnam.
Yes, actually, so because we have a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of China brands as well, so that they can work with the creators and sell cross-border products from China to Vietnam. And I think with all the geopolitical issue currently, I also cannot predict the future, but I can say that the unit economics of a new brands will be different compared to the old days. So that is something that we should bear in mind if we wanted to start a new brand. But still at the same time, when I had a chance to meet with a lot of Chinese brand owners, I see that most of the brand owners see Southeast Asia as one region. So it's a matter of where's the Southeast Asia HQ. So I think it's always Singapore as a Southeast Asia HQ. And recently I found that a lot of Vietnam also have some advantage in terms of the location, where for operating as an operating regional hub, it's also a place that a lot of China brands is looking into. So for me, I see a lot of opportunities there. And I think the macro is the macro things. For entrepreneurs, just keep doing and keep surviving.
It's kind of control what you can control, right? And if you can't control it, if it happens, you have to fix it. You need to find a way around it. But why worry about it until it happens?
So, I just spent a week in Shenzhen. I was talking to some of the sort of large consumer electronics brands, and one consensus I got through like the dinners and stuff. By the way, I gained like 2 kilograms over a week. So is that everyone's saying that they are most jealous about people who don't have a choice, right? Who only have a certain market to operate, who only have a certain so. If I'm a supplier to Apple, Apple tells me that, okay, because of geopolitics, you have to open a factory in Mexico. And for a Chinese entrepreneur to open a factory in Mexico, it's hard. But then you don't have to think about, okay, what are the opportunities? Because I think entrepreneurs are used to dealing with problems as they come by. But having to think about all these choices, all this macro trends, tailwinds, headwinds, and stuff, yes, that's quite tough. Anyway, next question. I see Simon nodding. I think you want to talk about something, but I'm not going to ask you this question. The next question is that for you, I phrased the question in my notes saying that is it good time for young entrepreneurs to start building startups in the ecosystem? But then I thought about this question. I think the answer will always be yes. So I want you to talk about more than just a yes answer.
Sure. Actually, I can combine both of these questions. Geopolitical things is not what we can control, but for sure the connection between different country in terms of the economics and collaboration in the supply chain will always be there. And I think these kind of things especially fit for young generation to do. Reason being, first, the young people knows young people, right? In Southeast Asia, as Feng just mentioned, they're quite dominated by the young generation. And the demand of the young generation is quite different with the traditional way of doing the business. For example, the taste, right, of young generation, the lifestyle of young generation, and their pursuit of certain kind of brand are so different right now. Yeah, if you take a look at the recent big boom of the big hit products in South Asia for the past 2 years, you can already find this kind of pattern, right? So I think it's quite good for the young generation, young entrepreneurs to do business in Southeast Asia and get rid of the traditional way of thinking about business, but really deeply think of what people need in this market, right? What's the different lifestyle they are leading in the market, and then they know about it. That's the first thing, because I think that's all decide the strategy of the enterprise. Secondly, I think what is good recently for the e-commerce in Southeast Asia is infrastructure in different kind of section in the value chain is already there. For example, we have MCN doing the content provider, right? We have a lot of manufacturers in Shenzhen supply tons of great products, right? We have also a lot of local team doing the payment system, doing the logistics, etc. So basically means if currently you create a business, it's really about to connect dots, right? Instead of generate something new for each of the value chain and building the infrastructure again. So I think that's quite good for a young generation to do that, because you're a fast learner, right? All these things happen in recent 3 to 5 years. No matter who come into the market, they have to understand it, and they have to learn it country by country, because different country, the players are different, right? The way of doing business might be different. So that's the second thing I think very fit for young people to delve into. And thirdly, e-commerce is really a kind of operation-driven business, right? You need to really look into the detail to decide what products you want to sell and how to shorten the lead time from the factory to the end user, right? You have to answer the question from the customer, asking about the price, the quality of the products, etc. You also need to design clear growth paths of your products by generating content continuously. So there's a lot of details you need to delve into. So it's really operational driven. So I think that's also feed for the young generation people to look into the details, be very, very diligent driving the business. Yeah. So I think all these three key factor for e-commerce business, especially cross-border e-commerce, content e-commerce business. Why it's a fit for young generation? Strategy-wise, young people knows young people. Resource-wise, you're a faster learner, can connect the dots. And thirdly, it's operation heavy. So it's really rely on your energy to get things done, right? So I think that's why the answer is always yes. Yeah.
It's a very, 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 very good answer. Damon, you just started a company, another company, which means that you obviously believe it's, and you are still young, so obviously you believe it's the answer is yes. But how about for younger people?
Is the question, is it still a good time for younger people to start an e-commerce business?
Yes, and why?
Honestly, I think the landscape has changed quite a bit. While we talk about cost of customer acquisition going up, right? For e-commerce business, the dirty little secret is that you spend most of your money on customer acquisition. A typical e-commerce brand, especially if you're starting up, spends 20, 50, depending on the kind of category you're operating in, 30, 50% of your revenue on marketing. So the landscape has changed quite a bit. We keep complaining, if you talk to e-commerce brand owners, you'll talk about cost of customer acquisition going up. But the reality is, today is the cheapest that your customer acquisition cost is going to be, especially on ad dollars, because the CPM prices that TikTok, that Meta charges just keeps going up. So yes, in the sense that, hey, if you want to get started, it's only going to get more expensive to build, to acquire customers in the future, at least where ad prices has been going. But I think also yes, in the sense that a lot of the difficult parts has been figured out. So it used to be 10, 20 years ago, right? If you want to start an e-commerce brand, you have to focus on many layers, including building the website, figuring out the logistics. All those things where there's less value added has been compartmentalized into companies that provide those specific layers. So if you can figure out the marketing, the attention part of converting customers, everything else is much easier to do today compared to 10, 20 years ago, because you really have to build a full stack. Today you don't. You get a good product, even that is almost not a full stack. You can OEM from China. Logistics, there are all kinds of 3PLs handling that for you. Website, Shopify, TikTok Marketplace, all those are there. You just need to figure out how to get the right product that people want. So it's easier than ever in that sense, right? Where you don't have to build that many domain expertise.
So it's easier?
To some extent, but also it's the kind of thing where it's easier to some extent. It's a very nuanced answer. It's easier to some extent, but then this obviously opens up a lot more competition, right? Because any kid that's 18 years old can go nano banana and generate images and start selling things online. It is easier in the sense, but it is also harder in the sense that there's going to be a lot more competition.
So it's easier for you, it's easier for everyone?
It's easier for everyone, yeah, but the competition makes it a bit harder then.
Good. Phone?
I think the two gentlemen have said everything, but maybe I'll add in a little bit is I think it's easy, it's definitely easier to start something now because all the infrastructure has been provided. I would say that it's easier to start, but it's harder to win. So it's very easy to, you can do a brand now, create a brand tomorrow with 2 clicks. You can have a company, a one-man company with AI, right? So that is how easy it is now to start. But to really, I think because it's very easy to start, it doesn't have enough time and effort for planning it to grow or sustainably. So the growth stage and the later stage, I would say it will be much harder when you eventually will have to get into the scale. Maybe you have to get into the retail or offline or something. And then that is the time that we can see. But it's better just start now. I think it's still easier than before. And it's the right timing. It's very right timing.
Thank you. We're going to move a little bit towards the how side. So we talk about macro, we talk about whether it's a good time, we talk about the geopolitics, why you should not care about it at the early stage. In how part, in your opinion, what are the key traits and skills young entrepreneurs need to have? I mean, young entrepreneurs of 2025 need to have as compared to the previous generation. Obviously, if you compare to 10 years ago, there was no TikTok, right? But what else?
It's a very, very good question. I think also following the previous question, it's for current entrepreneurs, it's more easy to connect the dots because many things are already there. But the requirement for the young generation is higher in terms of you need to have a broader knowledge and adaptability to get this cross-border business done. Right? It's involving a different culture, involving your language, involving how you bridge all different kind of business partners along the value chain. And previously, if you only do business in one of the country, then it's easier to connect the dots, right? But currently, you need to understand different market. And especially, to be very frank, I think currently, except US and China, there's no single giant market for any of the products brand to only look into, right? So with that saying, I think the three most important things young entrepreneurs should have. First is this kind of adaptability. The provider or infrastructure is there, but you need to know who can do what things and how to connect them together. And by doing this, it's never a one-time savvy that you can understand everything at the beginning. It's always go first and then iterate along the way, and then finally connect all the dots and make things happen. So I think this adaptability and iteration is very important. Right? You need always to keep an open mind. Secondly, I think need to be very bravery, because if you think about this business, right, you need to connect so many dots. To many of the people, they already back off from this kind of challenge. The suggestion I can give also similarly to Feng just said, you have to make the first step, right? And then you will realize it's not that difficult, right? Before you go in that step, you may think about our geopolitical reason, and there's different culture, a lot of things you cannot overcome. But once you do it, you will realize it's not that difficult. Conquer the fear, be brave, will be the second suggestion I can give to the young generation. And then the third thing will be, you need to have very strong stamina to really win in this market. And I think it's quite challenging these days. There is no single move can win the whole market things, right? Need to always keep steady pace, gradually make things happen step by step. To be honest, I think by end of the day, what we see for this cross-border business is once you set up all the value chain and make things happen, there'll always be profit. But many people die in the way, right? Before they get there, before they pave the way, all the connect all the dots, then they already give up in the middle. That's a lot of the situation I have seen. The opportunity is there, but you need to have more stamina in this kind of environment to really make things happen. Yeah, so I think these three suggestions, what I can give. Yeah.
So I think some of you might be aware of what Jack Ma, I mean, I don't need to introduce who Jack Ma is, once said, right? I mean, today is brutal, tomorrow is worse, the day after tomorrow is beautiful. Most people die tomorrow night. So, and actually it's not only in China, I think in the US, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this entrepreneur called Ben Horowitz. He started, he co-founded Netscape and a few other companies, and now he's the founding partner of Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the most famous VCs in the Silicon Valley. And he wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and you guys have all read that. Okay. In the book, he mentioned, he said he likes, during his investment journey, he likes to ask CEOs, founder CEOs, what made you successful? He said, the average mediocre CEOs always say that it's because of my grand strategy, it's because of blah, 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 blah. And he said great CEOs are always remarkably consistent. Their answer is always, I didn't quit. Some food for thought here. And while you guys were talking about this, I figured out how to use this iPad. Actually, it's quite easy to use. Sorry, I haven't used the iPad for a while. There are some questions coming in, and there's one question which didn't get any votes, but I think it's interesting for this particular theme that we're talking about. Somebody was asking, to all speakers, do you think that participating in hackathons or competitions to pitch our ideas is an effective way, or is finding a mentor a more viable option? It's a very practical problem.
Maybe I can take the question first, okay. And then you can add on. Definitely, I think both of them are viable options. If you're asking this question, probably you're thinking finding a mentor is more viable. So I would say, and having a great mentor is always great. It's a lifetime value. Because sometimes the mentor just say one sentence and it's changed your life. So always finding a mentor is always viable. So it's only like, should we go into hackathons or pitch events? I think it's, I don't think you will have immediate results after those hackathons or events. But I think it's a very good chance to validate the idea. Sometimes you have, as an entrepreneur or as someone who have a lot of ideas, the idea sometimes is always just an idea. It's never get a chance to go into a slide, not even to a company or a MVP. So to go to these events, you had a chance to eventually have to make a slide and a pitch about your idea. So it's partially realization of the idea already. And then you can see if you should make an MVP or something. But I think it's a way to get your ideas closer to the final steps. And in the beginnings of startups, I think every opportunity is a very valuable opportunities, because if you don't go there, and maybe luck is there, and you will meet someone there, and it can help with your startups. So sometimes it's a waste of time, but most of the time it's valuable. So that's my view on this.
Yeah, for me, I think that's different way of doing the business, and also it depends on what kind of business you want to do, right? For mentor, it's more about doing the current existing business, who you can learn some expertise from, right? A mentor can always help you to avoid some pitfalls, right? That's why you're looking for a mentor. That's important in this journey. However, if you want to create something new, especially in this area of AI, right? There's a lot of things you can change and bring new ideas. Then I think hackathon is also a good way to let different people challenge your idea and make 0 to 1 things happen. Especially during this competition, you may happen to meet someone who can do the business together with you, right? So I think it's also quite valuable if you're really a kind of creative guy and create something new, especially in this AI area. For example, AI generates content, AI doing the customer service, increase the efficiency, or even improve the ads investment more efficiently, etc. There's a lot of good ideas happening recently who never did before. And so I think in this angle, you can try this hackathon competition, etc., to test your idea. And in maybe 2 or 3 days, you can form a more official idea and push it, go to the market, etc.
I would say I have no idea. Okay, because I've never participated in one, but I think part of the question is more effective in doing what, right? I think it's probably effective if you're there to find mentors, there to talk to people who've done it, or even find teammates. But I don't think it's particularly effective in validating your ideas, right? Unless it is a hackathon organized by an organization who are going to be the buyer, right? Because in today's day and age, there is, if the purpose of, if you are trying to be effective in validating the idea, there's nothing more effective than just going out and building the product. And it's never been easier to prototype today, and building the product and going out to validate it instead of going through an intermediary of judges who judge whether this is going to work for another set of customers, right? So it really depends on what you're trying to get out of it, is my sense. I've never participated in this before, so take it with a pinch of salt.
It's actually a very good blend of answers to this question. Keep the questions coming, by the way. Yeah. I want to just also ask about something. I mean, we talk about mentors, we talk about hackathon. How about building a team? I mean, convincing people to join you. And of course, I mean, some people go to hackathon, but some business models you need to raise money from investors. You need to practice the pitch. And hackathon is usually a low-cost way of doing that. But how do you convince the best people to join you? I mean, I don't know, the two of you might have some personal experience.
To be honest, I'm very scared when it comes to hiring people, because it feels like I'm putting the future of a person in my hand and I become responsible for them, right? I'm very worried about ruining their career and ruining their life. That's like my main concern when it comes to hiring. But when it comes to attracting talent, right, we have to recognize that we can't compete with the big companies in terms of pay, in terms of prestige, right?
Like ByteDance.
Exactly, right? So you just have to appeal to their other senses, sell them the dream of, hey, join the rebels, try to build something, of other benefits that you can offer that in terms of responsibilities that a big company may not be able to offer, right? Selling them the dream of, hey, do you want to be in a cog in a large machine, or you want to build a machine itself? And there are people, the right people, be attracted to this. At least that's how I've mainly done it. I think the other way to source for this talent is to look at what I think of as undervalued assets, right? Big companies, typically when they look at resume, they screen for very obvious, I'm assuming they have an ATS system where they screen for prestige, they screen for going to certain schools, right? Those are fairly priced assets if you think of people as assets, right? I try to, and because we can't compete with that, I try to look at other things that are not on, that big companies typically don't look at. A lot of what I look at is people who have done things outside of, done their own things outside of your traditional curriculum and things that gives them prestige, right? So if you've built a business on the side before, I think that is a very high signal for me, right? If you run an organization on the side, have your own hobbies or things that you nerd out on, I think those are very high signals for me that I think bigger companies typically don't look at least with the first screening.
I think when I looked at my friends who joined big companies versus friends who join startups, I think they're looking for different things, right? I mean, people join big companies because big companies give you more resources you can leverage on. And at a younger age, you have more resources you can do and you are in a bigger platform, and you could achieve different things. For startups, it's usually people who are looking for something different, who enjoy more the process of creating something and dealing with chaos, etc. So I think part of that is probably also about identifying the sort of aspirations of people and find the right fit. Fong, anything to add?
Yeah, I think just to add on a previous question is what is one of the most important skill sets for entrepreneur? I think the most important skill set is the ability to attract the right people. Because if you have the right people, if you are not so good, the company will still be good. And to do so, I think it's really the hardest skills to have. So for our company, we mostly the senior managers was actually fresh grads with the company since the beginning, and they were able to develop themselves and groom up to the leader's position. And later on, we have to also hire new seniors people as well. And oftentimes, I see that the company also have a branding, so it's also like a brand. You still have to position how the company is attract to a certain type of people. Maybe the company is live by passion, for example, so that the people who really buy into that ideas will get attracted to the companies. And also, oftentimes, I see that there's a lot of seniors and very experienced people. They are having a very great times in the corporates as well, and now they want to look for something else. And it's the time that if they see they can contribute much better than they were doing in the previous organization, maybe they will consider to join. So I think it's the value proposition that you sell the company to the candidates.
Sell to the right people, yeah, at the right time. Maybe it's easier maybe it's easier if you sell to the right people at the right time rather than trying to sell to everyone. Yeah. Let's move to the last segment, which is the reflections a little bit. I think we talk about the 2025 entrepreneurs. You have a lot of things figured out that you can tap into the supply chain, etc. But you also have lots of competition, and also I think the information now transmit much faster. So I was talking to the sort of consumer electronics entrepreneurs in Shenzhen, and everyone's saying that whatever that competitor is doing, I learn that like the next minute. So does that help me? No, because I get constantly bombarded by all this anxiety because all the competitors are doing this, and whatever I do, competitors get to know like immediately. So because of all these things, and we do see that nowadays, I think sometimes entrepreneurs can be more anxious compared to, it's always a learning journey. It was always a lonely journey, but now we make it not so lonely, and it creates anxiety. So my question to all of you is that how do you, psychologically remain positive? Sorry, keep asking hard questions.
No, for me, since TikTok Shop, we are empowering not only the big brands, but also the small enterprises as well. This situation exists, and it's existed for quite a long time already, right? As I think Damon hates Amazon. These things happen a lot in Amazon, right? And so also welcome to TikTok. We'll protect you more. So the thing is, first from the platform side, we do have a lot of this initiative to protect the intelligence, the brand, the creative things. But I think overall competition is inevitable. What is better in cross-border business is actually the following speed is slower compared to if you only work in one market, like simply in US and in China. The thing is, one thing is, I really recommend current young entrepreneurs to design something new, use the state-of-the-art technology, really understand your customer, and to build something new instead of purely add a small trait or feature on the existing products. That's very easy to copy. And the more you have in terms of the deep understanding to the market, the more it's difficult for your competitor to follow you. That's for sure. Secondly, I think we need to build a kind of confidence that once we see there is someone entering this market, we can always try to do something new out of it and tap into another market. Maybe it's a niche market. For example, recently, you know, there are a lot of like consumer electronics brand in sports camera category, right? And they design the products in very fast, like every year, 2 new products coming out, right? And the competitor is very, very hard to follow them. So I think this kind of company is long-lasting, sustainable. The creativity, the technology-driven spirit is what we're looking for. So I think we should have the confidence to always lead in the market. That's what we cherish all our business and young entrepreneurs.
So looking back, one of the things I did really poorly is that I didn't celebrate wins enough. Every win, even if it's there, is not enough. It is, oh, expected. We did something well, expected. Why are we not doing the next thing? I think looking back, suffering, it's something that's going to happen, but going through the anxiety, going through that pain is a part that's optional. And I wasn't wise enough to learn to reframe that, hey, it's okay to be worried, but that doesn't have to cause you anxiety, that there are techniques that can help me deal with it where, hey, let's celebrate wins, because that really changes your mindset, changes your headspace. It's the reason I'm starting my next company. When I look back at my journey with my co-founder, Joshua, we realized that we got very lucky with each other because we went from being just co-founders where we talk about business every day to, hey, at some point, I noticed he was going through some personal struggles, some emotional struggles, and my original intention is, yo, I have no time to deal with this nonsense. I got to deal with the business, right? But oftentimes as founders, there are a lot of pains and emotional struggles that only other founders understand, right? So we grew together as founders, we grew together as people, and that's why having a co-founder, a peer group who is able to be there for you almost emotionally like therapists, right? Because there are certain things that as founders it's very hard to talk to other people about. If you're worried about making payroll, you can't tell employees, right? If you are worried about whether the company is going to survive tomorrow, sometimes even your spouse wouldn't quite understand. Only other founders can understand. And that's a big reason we're starting our next venture, which is Second Surface, a community for founders and CEOs. Yeah, so 2 things, celebrate wins. Don't think that just because things are you're suffering, it has to be painful, and find a good peer group.
I think that's a really good answers. I think so. It's a person or a group of people starting a company. So it's always in some situations. The company will always be very personal, related to the founders. And because it's very personal, I think you have a choice to craft your own belief and principles to run the company. Because opportunities is everywhere. Everything is opportunities. And we often get very anxieties because we see it's very good. Why don't we tap in? The competitor is doing it. Why should not us? But if you craft your own like Bibles and see that, oh, we don't choose it because we don't want it, or we don't choose it because it's our choice, then it's easier to accept the fact that you cannot do anything. I think that's one thing. And the second thing is probably to stay mentally healthy. You should read the books that Jiang Gan just mentioned. hard things about the hard things, to see that everyone is actually facing the same problems. So our problems is everyone's problems. So everyone is just same like us, even the richest man in the world. So it's okay. I think so.
Good reflection and good recommendation as well. I see more questions coming in. Who is Nicholas Cho? Amongst all the questions, you are the only one who left the name. Everybody else is anonymous. Good job. But your question is, would entrepreneurs be able to combat scams like impersonation as it impacts on the business due to the new digital era? So you're talking about entrepreneurs, how do they deal with like scams? Anything about that topic? What type of scams? So you're talking about tackling this problem or tackling that entrepreneurs facing this issue? Digital era. Lots of things you don't know whether it's fake or real. Lots of scams as well.
For the people or for company, I mean, just to clarify the question.
Sorry?
Just to clarify the question, the scam is you want to solve it for personal issue or it's more for the business?
It's because some may impersonate. For example, I open the ABC, then scammer will also set up the ABC account, something like that.
You mean the leakage of the personal information, etc.?
Sorry?
The leakage of your personal information, etc., these kind of things.
E-commerce. I think this is more linked on the e-commerce side. Impersonation is something like create the same digital resources, that kind.
Are you talking about other brands, other fake brands copying a real
Yes,
brand
correct.
and impersonating a real brand?
Correct.
Okay. I think TikTok Shop has good protection for sellers.
I'm protecting sellers, but I think you have a say, right, for your experience before. Yeah, I think this is quite a similar question as previous one. So we will try our best to protect all these kind of things from happen. But no, as I think what's challenging right now is there is more technology also being used for this kind of scam issues like AI stuff. That's always evolving between platform protection and the individual's attack to the platform, etc. Yeah, I think it's still going on issue. No, not coming to the end. But for sure, combat scam, we have a dedicated team just to focus on this direction, trying to solve all this issue. Especially, I think in overseas, we are protecting the young users on the TikTok. So it's a pretty important things. But yeah, it's currently with the emerging AI stuff, this is a continued combat. And but we believe by end of the day, it's well like 10 years ago, the e-commerce also have a lot of other things like leakage of the personal information. But by end of the day, it's solved. I think after several years, we're also going to that stage, solve all this issue, and make the platform more safe. Yeah.
I think I want to maybe add in another aspect of the questions. I think the question is very interesting in a way that it's not 100%. I think the most difficult now to deal with in today's digital era is not when the product is 100% fake or impersonate, but it's 99% the same. So when it's 99%, and with the current supply chain and stuff, it's very easy to do it. But I think most of the successful brands or successful company will have their own strength in can be in everything or in a particular thing. Some will have a better price strategy, some have a better logistic, some have a better branding and communication skills. So it will help differentiate when it comes to competition on the platforms.
I think also at the end of the day, there's one element of this issue is that what exactly is your competitive advantage, right? If your competitor, if you're someone impersonating, you can do a job as good as you, how can you still command a brand premium? So you have to have something which is drastically better than others. Anyway, so I see the clock is ticking. I see more questions coming in, and we probably don't have time to answer all the questions. Oh, there's one question I have a strong opinion about. Is it necessary to have a leader in a team? Yes, it's always necessary to have a leader in a team. So, I think it has been a very interesting discussion and talk about the macro, the sort of the journey, how to build a brand, the reflections. Maybe I'll just invite each of you to have, like, I don't know, one closing remark to the people here who are thinking about building their companies. Short one.
I'll go first. I think I'll address the earlier question on what are competencies young people should build. And I seriously think that you should learn to dance on TikTok. Okay, but for real though. And the reason I believe it's not so much dancing on TikTok, but I'm speaking from a brand perspective. If you think about what are all the value layers that have been commoditized, right? Attention and maybe to some extent product are the only things left in building a brand, right? The ability to command, because everything else that's used to be hard to do, building a website, platforms, logistics, has been commoditized. You can press a few buttons, make a few calls, it's done, right? So the only thing that is really left in building a brand, it's maybe on some side proprietary product, but that's hard to do, right? Because if you are starting out, manufacturers often don't take it seriously. So the only thing left for you to do is be really good at commanding attention and building a brand, a creator-led brand, and getting that eyeball on the product. And I think it's never been harder, but also easier today. It used to be, we have the follow graph, which is, hey, your attention is based on your follower count. But today it's on the interest graph, right? Where every content, short form content you put out has its own democratic way of getting viral. Right, so I think that's the most important skill you got to learn when you're starting out today. Dance on TikTok.
Thanks for speaking for us.
And us.
I think, as just mentioned by many of the answer for the questions, I think currently entrepreneurs may have the fear of the challenging, right, in front of us. But if after 5 years we look back, I'm very confident to say you'll find this is still one of the best area, timing, you can create your business in this domain. As again, the infrastructures are there, the need of the users are there, the market is still growing, right? E-commerce is growing, content e-commerce inside of e-commerce is growing even faster. You'll find out this is still the best timing to do things. So the suggestion from my side is be brave to do that. And if you still don't know quite clear on the strategy, on the direction, you want to look into the concrete opportunity, feel free to reach out to me offline. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And so my final ad is, so I work with a lot of content creators. And everyone thinks that being a content creator is very easy. So you just need to film a video and then post it online. Most people struggle. So most creator wannabe have filmed 30 to 40 videos already, but never posted online. So if there is any advice, I think just go for it. So you must do it. That's the final steps, but also the beginning steps of the next journey.
That rhymes with what Simon said earlier, like be brave. That also rhymes with what Damon said earlier, that just build a product, test it out, get real feedback from the market. Thank you very much, all the panelists. I think it has been an amazing discussion.